Jamal, you know what
Yo,
I hate?
what's that?
Boston sports fans.
Boston sports fan. Go ahead.
Patriots, Bruins, Red Sox, Celtics. Hate them.
BC, Boston
Hate
College,
'em.
all of them.
Yep.
Harvard, all of them.
Yeah. But so I don't feel bad for them for what happened.
But listen, man, can you imagine what's going to happen in Boston if the Celtics lose today, man? Like, what kind of mood that town is going to be?
Yeah, that would be man. I would just love it so much. The
I,
Bruins get
I,
bounced by the Canes. The Celtics get bounced by the Bucks. What y'all got left?
what y'all got left? What y'all got left?
None.
Do you know? Do you know one of these jerks had the audacity to try to tell us North Carolinians that we couldn't get over the Civil War and try to equate that to a hockey series?
Boy, salty.
What an idiot, man!
They're so salty. So salty.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this latest installment of Under Construction. I am Jamal, the Angry Black Fan.
I'm Kaiser Sose.
What's up, y'all?
And I know it's been a while since you've seen us. We took last week off for Mother's Day, and the week before we didn't do a show because we did one during the NFL draft. So this is the first show since the draft. So we got quite a few topics to get into. First, we're going to start with the oblong-shaped ball. That there's a team from North Carolina or Charlotte or Rock Hill. I don't know. They throw it around. They don't do anything. They don't win games or anything. They just.
I'm at this point. I'm going to call them the other football team. Charlotte FC is the real football team.
Charlotte FC is the real football team. But the Carolina Panthers actually had a really good draft. We have not talked about it since then, but they had a draft that a lot of the pundits felt like was really, really good, and it may have saved Matt Rule's job depending on how next
for now.
The draft looks really good. We're going to talk about the schedule here in a bit, but let's talk a little bit about the draft. Now, during the draft party, we only saw the Panthers' first-round pick, Ike Okonwu from NC State, a pick I think that everyone in Panthers Nation is and should be happy with. I mean,
I'm happy. Yeah.
Very rarely do you get your pick of the best players available at a position that you absolutely need.
Right.
And that's what happened on draft night. And they said Icky, which I felt like was a good pick. It wasn't even the safest pick, but the guy is so huge. You know, they say you can't teach size. I mean, that guy is huge. He's a monster. I think that was a outstanding first-round pick for the Panthers. And then they messed around and drafted a quarterback in the third round, Matt Corral from Ole Miss. An interesting pick. I'll just leave it.
Very.
And then Brandon Smith, linebacker from Penn State, Amari Barno, edge rusher from Vatech, Cade Mays, another offensive lineman from Tennessee, and then Kalen Barnes, a cornerback from Baylor. It's almost like the Panthers said, "Okay, here are all of our, holes that we have on the team. Let's fill them all with draft picks."
Right.
Unlike the previous season, where their 2 seasons were like, "Okay, all defense all the time." A very good balanced draft, I think.
Yeah, I think it was a balanced draft, and quite honestly, man, I like the approach. I mean, let's keep it funky, man. We have been extremely critical of the Carolina Panthers the last 2 seasons, as far as like kind of making these hasty trades, giving up second round picks for Matt Darnold and kind of these hasty deals to kind of mortgage their future on players that we just kind of scratch our heads like, do we really want to do that? But with the picks in the draft, man, I have to say I'm very, very pleased with the Carolina's draft, man. I know Matt Corral is maybe a kind of a questionable, maybe controversial pick, for lack of a better term. But I honestly think they probably didn't see him falling that far and felt like they had to jump on it because of the need at quarterback. And I'm not really mad at it, to tell you the truth, man. And I really like the kid from Penn State. I think you may actually see him start day one, surprisingly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I see quite a few. Well, maybe not a few, but yeah, I think we're going to see 2, maybe 3 day one starters
Yeah.
Out of this group.
What if Matt Corral's one of them?
You know what? I mean, so Matt Corral came out and made a statement that he had a huge chip on his shoulder after falling all the way to the third round.
Right.
Which, that's something quarterbacks, every player says that when they fall. Let's be honest, when I see someone get drafted in the third round, a quarterback, I think, well, there was a reason he went in the third round. Having said that, it wasn't a quarterback-heavy draft. We saw one get drafted in the first round, which I can't remember the last time that happened in my lifetime. So I just think that it was just a weak draft for quarterback. So I don't think just as being picked in the third round necessarily speaks to the abilities of Matt Corral. From all the tape I've seen on him, he looks capable, dual threat quarterback, which is kind of interesting to me because considering how the Panthers treated Cam Newton last season. And I mean that from a playbook perspective. And they go out and they draft a dual threat quarterback in the third round. Go figure.
Well, I mean, I guess it's a little different because they actually spent the first round pick on an offensive lineman this time. I mean, when's the last time they've done that other than, trading for Jeff Otah back in the day? You know what I mean? So this is the first time they've actually invested a first round pick in the left tackle. So, and I think that bodes well for whoever the quarterback is going to be. Just to throw it out there, I mean, because we'll talk about it a little later on. There's still rumors of Baker Mayfield possibly being traded here. The quarterback situation obviously is still uncertain up until this point. So at least the Panthers are investing in the offensive line and saying, hey, we at least want to put the pieces around whoever the quarterback's going to be successful. As far as how that goes for Matt Corral, time will tell. To me, if I'm Jamal Rule, that quarterback competition is wide open. Matt Rule is going to come out and tell you, hey, Sam Darnold's the starter. I ain't trying to hear that. All right. The way I see it is that QB competition is in full effect, man. And probably a long shot, in my personal opinion, Cam Newton is still a possibility of being quarterback. So it's still up in the air up until this point.
Yeah, I think Sam is Matt's guy, though.
For some reason. Yeah. For some reason.
And that's going to muddy the waters here a little bit. I think that a lot of fans at this point, why not see what the kids got?
You know what?
Matt Corral's got.
I'm gonna be Jamal Bayless real quick and give you a hot take. I think Sam Darnold is Matt Rule's guy because Matt Rule doesn't want to appear wrong. That's his personal opinion.
Absolutely. He was brought here because he knew how to build teams and scout players.
Right.
You bring a guy in, he doesn't work out. I mean, it's already happened once with Teddy Bridgewater. Although I was one of Teddy's biggest critics, I don't think that was completely Teddy's fault. I think that he did the best that he could with what he had here.
Right.
And it just didn't work out. So, I'm not looking forward to a big quarterback controversy during training camp, but I think that's going to be good news for the Panthers.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, man. Now, there's a question in the chat that I do want to kind of address. How are we going to stop the run? You know what? That's a damn good question.
Actually, go ahead. Go ahead, Joel.
No. I was just going to say, look, we made a move to kind of improve the middle linebacker spot, and I think a lot of this is going to fall on Derek Brown, man. It's kind of a down season last season, so I think again a lot of that is going to fall on him, man, and we'll see. I mean, I know that was probably the thorn in the Panthers' butt as far as the defense goes last season, man. So. Did they do enough to upgrade the defense to fix that? I think time will tell, man. We'll see.
You know what I think? Addition by subtraction. Hassan Reddick leaving might have been the best thing for the Carolina Panthers defense in terms of stopping the run.
And I go ahead. I know what you're about to say because we love Hassan Reddick as a pass rusher, but he leaves a lot to be desired when it comes to stopping the run.
Yeah, I don't think you can have Brian Burns and Hassan Reddick on the edges because they're not run stoppers. And you would think, well, okay, you got those two guys. They're going to pressure the quarterback, but they really didn't. The Panthers only had 39 sacks on the season. In an extended season. We had more and more game, and they only had 39 sacks, which is, below the middle of the median for the NFL, which is.
And I don't mean to cut you off, but you know what's even crazier about that is that we started the season so hot when it comes to getting pressure on the quarterback.
Well,
like those first 4 games, like we were on fire as far as the pass rush goes.
We couldn't keep teams honest though. Teams knew, well, okay, so they're going to rush us from the outside. Just run it up the middle.
Let's run up the middle, right?
That's the game plan. The Dallas Cowboys exposed the Panthers, exposed that last season in our matchup with them. In you know how the NFL is, copycat league.
No doubt.
Team saw it, and that was it. I think losing Hassan Reddick allows the Panthers to not go all in on the pass rush this season, and I think the run defense will be better. Just because of that.
Right, I agree. I do agree with that, man. You know what? We were talking about this before we got on, man. Look, the kid is gonna have quite a test week 1. Ike Conwu meet Myles Garrett week 1, buddy. I mean, you want to talk about a test. Yeah. So I kind of want to talk about the first game, see what your thoughts are on that, man.
Yeah, I'm okay with just throwing a rookie into the fire against Myles Garrett. I mean, what better test coming into the NFL?
There is no better test. There's no.
Do I expect him to do well? Hell no. He's gonna get destroyed. He's gonna get crushed out there. But I think that might be good. Hey, this is one of the best the NFL has to offer. I mean, think about this. You go up against Myles Garrett your first NFL game. Who else are you going to go up against in the season?
That's better than him.
Better than him, right?
It should be all downhill from there.
Exactly. He's going to learn a lot just from that experience. I know that the coaching staff is going to sit down. Okay, we're going to look at this tape and we're going to see what Myles Garrett ran all over you all game. And that's if Matt Rule has the balls to keep him in the game all game. I mean, right. You can't just leave him out there on an island with Myles Garrett and allow him to get killed over and over. That's not going to happen. But I do think that the Panthers have a real development opportunity here just in game 1 with that matchup.
Yeah. I think a very important point you just made is leaving him on the island. What I mean by that is, of course, you got a game plan against people like Myles Garrett. You got to chip. You got to chip block. You got to double team. You got to do whatever you can to keep Garrett out that backfield. And that's going to be important, man. Like, they really got to have the kids back that week 1. I mean, he can't do it alone. That's no diss to him. That's anybody in the NFL. Myles Garrett is a sack machine, dude. So you really got to the coach is really going to have a good game plan centered around Myles Garrett to keep him off the quarterback. So good luck to the kid.
Well, let's go down through the rest of the schedule real quick. Cleveland, we play them at home week 1 on September 11th, so there's going to be a lot of American flags and fighter jet flyovers that day. Then we play the New York Giants in week 2 in New York. Then we have the Saints, Cardinals, and San Francisco on a 3-game homestand.
Jesus, man.
Yeah, and then we play the Rams in Los Angeles. And then Tampa Bay at home, and then Atlanta, Cincinnati on the road, and then Atlanta at home, Baltimore on the road, Denver at home, and our bye doesn't come all the way to week 13. After the bye, we play Seattle in Seattle, which is always kryptonite for us.
Right.
Pittsburgh and Detroit at home, and then we close out the season with 2 division opponents, Tampa Bay and New Orleans on the road, it's kind of odd that our last home game is Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
And then our next 2, we close out the season on the road. What do you think about that schedule? And maybe too early to give predictions, but
yeah, I was gonna say I don't want to get into predictions just yet because number one, we're probably gonna do a real season preview show, so that's the main reason why. Number 2 is kind of early. With that being said. When I first looked at that schedule, my first thought was, man, that is brutal. And I don't know if I see 4 or 5 wins on that schedule, but we'll get more into that a little later on, man. It's a brutal schedule, dude. And I mean, like I saw something where it was saying this is the 17th hardest schedule in the league. I don't know how they calculate that or where they're getting that from. That looks a lot harder than 17th to me. We're talking about Baltimore playoffs, okay? We're talking about Seattle, which we always struggle. We're talking about Pittsburgh, who we haven't beaten how many years now? I've lost count. Cardinals are sneaky. Like we usually have success against them, but I can't discredit them going into the season. We got the 49ers on the road, which we all know happened. What happened the last? I'm sorry. Oh, the 49ers coming here on the road. I'm sorry.
We played them in Bank of America Stadium. So
okay, so we played them here, and forgive me, y'all, because of Spectrum, I don't have my internet, so I can't look at it. But even with the 49ers coming here, man, that's a tough defensive team that's coming in here, man. I don't know. I wouldn't count that as a win. So it's brutal, man. It's a very brutal schedule that's really going to test the mettle of this team. And I kind of see, and unfortunately, man, right now, and I say right now because things can change between now and training camp and the beginning of the season. But right now, I see the season playing out exactly how last season played out. And I'll just kind of keep it at that.
Yeah, on the surface, I can see where the 17th hardest schedule comes from because the NFC South is considered a weak division now.
Right.
Especially if Tom Brady had not come back, the division would be wide open. But I think right now it feels like it's Tampa and then New Orleans and then Carolina and Atlanta are just kind of fighting to see like who's not the worst that's left over. Having said that, outside of our own division, which could go anyway, honestly.
Yeah.
These are tough matchups. AFC West and NFC West. We don't match up against any of those teams, and we never have historically matched up against those teams well. Denver always seems to beat the hell out of us. Baltimore always seems to beat up on us.
And Denver has that. And Denver has the boogeyman now. That's kind of been a thorn in our ass the last couple of seasons as well, Mr. Russell Wilson. So
absolutely. Which I'm thinking, okay, Russell Wilson is not in Seattle, so we may not. That dynamic may change. Russell Wilson has had a lot of success. I'm not going to quite say he's owned the Panthers, but
he's had a lot of success, right?
Yeah, exactly. He seems to have this magic when it comes to playing the Panthers. So maybe we won't have that in Seattle, but playing them on a 4 p.m. game on the West Coast, and then after that we play Pittsburgh at home, which is a road game for us.
That's really sad to say.
Yeah,
but
I mean, you guys, if you guys have ever been to a Panthers game against the Steelers, I don't care if it's preseason, it's gonna be half the crowd's gonna be Steelers fans in there.
It's disgusting. It is that, which is why I don't go because I can't take it.
Yeah, I've been to 2 games against the Steelers at Bank of America.
Same.
Same experience. So I mean, this is just such a tough schedule. Look at all the teams that made the playoffs last season that are on this schedule.
Right.
If you hate Matt Rule, you love this schedule. Because
Kaiser, before you go into that, I'm going to ask a very objective question. For once in my life, I'm going to be objective about Matt Rule. Is it fair to really effectively judge him based off this schedule and our roster? Is it really fair?
No, it's not. But to take a quote from
the guy from the 4-letter network.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm just saying. People say it's a business.
No doubt,
it's a business. As we're finding out with James Borrego, which we'll talk about in a bit, it's a business decision. They just felt. I mean. I don't think you can blame the Hornets' lack of success. I mean, they had a winning record in a tough Eastern Conference, but can you really say, well, it was totally fair to blame all of that on Borrego? There was a lot of blame going around for the Panthers past season. Same thing with Matt Rule. We've been hard on Matt Rule, but you look at this schedule and the way the team is constructed. Could you, if the Panthers goes say 7-11? Like Chris has said, I mean, is that Matt Rule's fault? We don't have a quarterback. We don't have an offensive line.
To be fair, It's not, man, because I look at it. I mean, again, very early. I don't want to get too far into predictions just yet, but I look at this schedule and I say 5 to 7 wins. You know what I mean? So I don't know if it's. I don't know if there's any coach who can pull more wins out of this team. That's what I'm getting at.
What's going to be interesting is how much time is Tepper really going to give Matt Rule? So the NFL is NFL teams are generally not as generous with that with coaches. Pretty much, you got 3 seasons. That's what you got. And if you don't make a vast improvement in those 3 seasons, then we see all. We see. I don't know how many times in the NFL I see coaches, and I'm thinking, damn, they already fired him. Look at Rob Chudzinski. He didn't get a player in Cleveland. We see it all over the league. So, David Tepper has essentially said that, he's going to let Matt Rule build this thing out, and it's going to be, a marathon, not a sprint.
Right.
Do you think Tepper really, the Hornets re-signed James Borrego to an extension at the beginning of the season and then fired him. Tepper could say all he wants. Oh, yeah, we're going to give him 5 years. But
Kaza Sose, if there is one thing that we have learned in the last, 2 to 3 seasons when it comes to both of these professional teams, is that people will give you lip service. Kemba Walker gave us lip service. Mitch Kupchak and Michael Jordan gave us lip service. And I think David Tepper has given us lip service. What do I mean by that? Dave Tepper has preached that he's being patient. Matt Rule told us that Jay-Z took 7 years and blah, blah, blah. And, patience. But let me say, man, I don't buy it. There is nothing about me that believes Dave Tepper will be patient enough to give Matt Rule another season beyond this. If we don't, at least win 8 to 9 games. I'm just throwing a number out there, okay? But I don't believe it. I think it's all lip service, and just like you alluded to, man, whether it's scapegoating, whether it's deserved or whether it's fair or not, somebody's going to take the fall for it, and more than likely, it's going to be the head coach.
These last 2 comments, very interesting.
What's up, Mike? Mike, glad to have you, bro.
Mike, rep the home team says Sean Payton, and Mike Thompson says former Steelers owner, they generally keep their coaches. So that is true. The Steelers are the model of consistency in the NFL. The Carolina Panthers are the exact opposite, or were
the antithesis of the Steelers. Yeah,
of the spectrum there. So Tepper could say, look, we want to maintain some consistency and allow Matt Rule to build. But Sean Payton's out there without a job. If you have a chance, if Sean Payton's a little interested in coming to the Panthers, don't you make that call?
In a heartbeat. Kaiser, let me tell you something. On how much do we internally hate Sean Payton as far as we hate him, right? Can't stand the guy, right? Let him say, hey, I'm really interested in the Panthers side. Hey, come on down.
I'm a big Sean Payton fan now. My favorite coach.
Always love him. Always like the guy. Always.
No class act. I think, hey, Tepper has. I'll give David Tepper this. He said he was going to come out and be an aggressive owner, and he's done exactly that, for better or for worse.
For better or for worse, right?
And if the Panthers midway through the season look kind of shaky, and it looks like the roster build or whatever they're trying to build is not working out, he's going to be on the phone with Sean Payton and Sean Payton's people. You know it. He's going to be on the phone and be like, hey, man, what's it going to take to get you to come down here and coach against your old team?
Right.
And, Sean Payton may say no.
And then David Tepper is going to offer him $50 million to be the head coach of the Panthers, and I don't know how Sean Payton turns that down. But
Tepper, if he sees any opportunity, even if it's this small, to make the Panthers that much better, he goes after it. Now, if Matt Rule somehow surprises all of us and the Panthers have a great season, then that's off the table, because then that makes Tepper look great. Hey, I told you guys. See, I told you guys.
I told you that was my guy. I told you we were going to turn it around.
You reminded me of me. So interesting schedule, man. I just don't. But you know what? The NFL is far more unpredictable than any other sport because of parity, the Panthers could come out and, surprise everyone. And given how inconsistent the team has been literally in the last 3 decades,
right?
It's always when we're like, man, the Panthers going to suck. And they have a good season. Like, they come out of nowhere,
right,
and play well.
And listen, and how many times with the Panthers and Hornet? Well, let's talk about mainly the Panthers. Have we looked at the schedule and been wrong either way? You know what I mean? Like,
Right,
so
yeah.
we'll look at the schedule and be like, oh man, that's a super easy schedule, and then we go 6-10. You know,
Right, yeah.
This is why this thing is always tough to kind of try to predict so early, man. You got to figure in injuries, you got to figure in just roster turnover, all that stuff. So we'll see, man.
Yeah, I agree with this. The team, I don't think we've seen a lot of progression under Rule. I don't think this team is that much different than the 2018 team, which was Ron Rivera's last season.
Right.
I don't see a huge difference, and that's concerning. There was a big difference in the team that John Fox left and Ron Rivera inherited. Even though Ron Rivera got a ton of heat his second season for the Panthers' performance, but the third season they won the division, had a great season. They lost in the playoffs to Colin Kaepernick and the San Francisco 49ers, but they won the division the next 2 seasons and made a Super Bowl. So you could see that progression happening under the last regime.
Right.
Over. We're not seeing that now, and I think that's
our trajectory has been really slow, and it's kind of just been steady. You know what I mean? Like, it's not really going down, it's not going up.
Hey, bro, it took Jay-Z 7 years.
Took Jay-Z 7 years though.
He gave you prophecy on the first joint. Y'all all lamed out. Didn't really appreciate it till the second one came.
I don't know what that means for us.
Like, press the name out. Etch the name out. Put Rule on top. Oh boy! Speaking of regime change, we're in the middle of with the other professional sports team in Charlotte.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
The sources are saying that Mike D, no D. We're just gonna call him Mike Antoni.
Mike Antoni. Yes.
All right. Mike Antoni is the guy.
Hey, now, before we start this segment, before we really start this segment, Mike, if you are still on, so Mike brought up the fact that Mike D'Antoni may be the coach of the Hornets, and if you would have saw his face when he was discussing it, it was the funniest thing I saw all night last night. Like, Mike is of a dark skin hue. I've never seen a dark skin dude get red. He was so mad talking about Mike D'Antoni last night. It was hilarious, but go ahead, sir.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here because nobody in Hornets Nation is going to rejoice at that. But.
Yep, go ahead.
So I said this on an episode a few weeks ago, right after they announced that they were letting James Borrego go. And you think about the way the Hornets are constructed in the identity that they've built.
Right.
They're an exciting, young, running gun team. They run up and down the floor. They score a ton of points. They don't play no defense, but they are a highlight package every time LaMelo Ball goes down the court with his hair on fire.
Yeah.
When you want a coach that fosters that, I know we're all like defense, but let's say you bring in a guy like Mark Jackson, who isn't coming to the Hornets, by the way, but a guy like Mark Jackson, who typically plays a more half-court oriented offense, slows the pace down to get less possessions on the other team and thus play better defense. Is that good for the Hornets, though? Think about it. If you're Michael Jordan, Mitch Kupchak, you're like, we got LaMelo Ball and Miles Bridges, Kai Jones running the break. James Bouknight will probably get more playing time. Don't we want a guy like Mike D'Antoni? Mike D'Antoni is going to come in, and he is essentially going to say, okay, what you guys did on the Borrego, we're going to do that times 10.
Right.
And all the Hornets players are going to love it because that was probably the biggest reason James Borrego was let go. The players just weren't feeling him or whatever. They couldn't buy in. Not that they couldn't buy into his philosophy, but I think it was just a conflict between his philosophy as far as developing players and playing time and discipline. I don't think the players like that. Mike D'Antoni is going to come in and he's just going to be like, hey, dog, just throw between the leg alley-oops every play. and shoot from half court and whatnot. And you know what? The fans are going to love it. We're going to sell a bunch of tickets. We're going to average 125 points a game. We're going to give up 126. But plus, Mike D'Antoni's got a coaching pedigree. Coach of the year 2 times. The guy essentially lives in the Western Conference Finals.
All right. So
would there really be such a bad thing? I do agree with this comment that we would see more injuries with D'Antoni, but I mean, I just don't see firing Borrego and then essentially hiring another Borrego.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So in our private little chat yesterday, what did I say? I said it is so ironic that you're going to fire Borrego to hire Uber Borrego. Now you're getting Super Borrego. Okay. All right. So, and the irony behind that is funny because, so as far as what we've heard about the firing of Borrego, we've heard Borrego was essentially fired for lack of discipline and the lack of defensive development. Those are the 2 things, the common things that we heard about Borrego's firing. We don't know if that's lip service or not, but we'll go with this, okay? All right, let's address the first thing. Lack of so-called discipline. Are these kids going to listen to a 73-year-old, 72-year-old Mike D'Antoni? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. I'm literally just asking, okay? Now, does Mike D'Antoni come in with a certain cachet, with a certain respect? I think so. And I want to throw you a nugget. We reported earlier maybe a couple of months ago, that the Hornets met with Mike Krzyzewski. Let me tell you why that may have been significant. Personal opinion, I think they might have consulted Coach K in the hiring of D'Antoni. I'm going to tell you why that makes sense. Who was on the sideline when Coach K was coaching the USA team? It was Mike D'Antoni. Mike D'Antoni has the respect of Coach K, and I think that matters. I think MJ and the brass listen to K and say, you know what? If this guy respects D'Antoni, I think he needs to be the guy. All right. Let's address the second thing: lack of defensive development, so to speak. Here's a weird take I'm gonna throw out there. Okay. When especially young players, and our main man Jerry Valancourt kind of alluded to this on WFNZ one day. When players are not happy, when shots are not falling, when things are not going their way, it's kind of hard to get young guys to buy in defensively when the other side of the floor is not going well. Now you bring in the D'Antoni, and you assume it'll go better offensively, and they have more freedom to do what they want, and you assume they'll be happier doing so. Maybe, just maybe, they now buy in more defensively. Even though D'Antoni doesn't kind of, I don't know, preach defense, even though that's not his forte, maybe, just maybe, if he can get those kids to kind of pay him more attention and to be more locked in, maybe that's the way you can get them to buy in defensively on that end. Just maybe. That's my take on this.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think that it'll be an issue of are the players going to listen to an old man like D'Antoni. I mean, honestly, you ask LaMelo Ball, who would you rather play for? What do you think is going to come out now? James Borrego? Even though for what we understood in the media, he actually had a pretty good relationship with James Borrego. But
right.
No, from a basketball sense, who would you rather play with? I've never heard any player have any issues with Mike D'Antoni, mainly because he just kind of lets them do what they do.
Okay, I'm gonna throw something out here, and look, y'all can take this however way you want to. I'm not trying to sway anybody's opinion. James Harden is very high on Mike D'Antoni. To this day, it is believed that James Harden still wants Mike D'Antoni as his coach. Take that however you want to. You know what I mean? And to that point, Mike D'Antoni has always been great when it comes to the development and the elevation of point guards. He turned Steve Nash into a 2-time MVP. So to say that he won't be good for LaMelo Ball is, I don't see it. I think he'll be great for LaMelo Ball.
I just don't see I just don't see the Hornets firing Borrego to hire another unproven assistant coach.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Why would you do that? It would that would be different if the Hornets had like a terrible season, but they didn't have a terrible season. In fact, even though they missed the playoffs, they had their best season that they've had in 6 years. So I just don't see them saying, okay, they can say, okay, Borrego's not the guy to get us to the next level. That's important. Okay. They need a guy who's going to, people have said it. Borrego was the starter house. Now you're ready to move up. Now you're ready to move into the big house, into a McMansion. Hiring Kenny Atkinson, Darvin Ham, those guys, those are still starter houses. I don't see the Hornets making that kind of move. They're gonna hire Mike D'Antoni. Y'all might as well get ready.
I'm ready. Listen. Look. Just to throw it out there. Reports as early as yesterday were still saying that Frank Vogel is in the mix. I don't buy it one bit. I'm totally prepared. But
you know what? Okay, I mean, even Frank Vogel, that's a guy who's won a championship. He's got a winning pedigree as a coach. He's coached star players. Those aren't the kind of guys the Hornets are looking at. They're not looking at guys like Atkinson and Ham.
Right.
They're like, okay, who's going to take the team to the next level? Who's been to the next level?
Let me tell you something that I think I'd be in favor of hiring Frank Vogel. Look at the egos he's had to deal with.
Boy, man, yeah.
I mean, come on, man. You want to talk about a tough job, and you want to talk about being scapegoated. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he got so much blame for the Lakers season, and it's like, did y'all watch those games?
Did y'all watch this? Like, seriously?
Did y'all watch Russell Westbrook be terrible? I mean. I think what clouds that situation is, not to get too much on the Lakers, but we still don't know who was pulling the strings. Was it LeBron? Right. Was it Jeannie Buss? Was it Kurt Rambis? Was it the ghost of Phil Jackson? There were all these people that everyone wanted to shift the blame to how that team was constructed, which was the biggest issue with that team, how they were constructed. You just couldn't have LeBron James and Russell Westbrook and Street Clothes Davis, on that team. It just didn't work. So, I mean, I think Frank Vogel would be a good pick for the Charlotte Hornets. I mean, he'd be an upgrade from Borrego. So, So I don't know. Mike's the guy. That's the guy. Y'all might as well just get ready. Just get your bags out.
Just look. Whoever you want doesn't matter. I'm at this point. I'm gonna pencil in D'Antoni being the new coach for the Hornets, man.
So how long do the fans give old Mike before we turn on him? Let's say they hire Mike D'Antoni. What do the Hornets have to do? What is the expectation then?
Oh, I know my expectation. I damn sure know my expectation.
50 wins.
I cannot speak for other fans when it comes to expectations and what we want. I damn sure know what I want. I'm going to say this again. Here's Broken Record Time by Jamal. Again, look, the Hornets have made Borrego the symbol of mediocrity. You've pretty much said to Borrego, you're the reason we're mediocre. You're the reason we can't take the next step, okay? So with that being said, the Hornets are now making the next head coach the step out of mediocrity, right? Right? For better or for worse. I don't give a damn what the expectations are. You better win 50 games next year. You better damn win a playoff series because you've already made Borrego the face of the mediocrity. So take that next step. When whoever you hire, the damn sure better take us to the next step. It's that simple.
Yeah, I would say the expectations from both the front office and fans, the city, everyone would have to be massive if you hire a coach like Mike D'Antoni.
Raise them. You got to raise your expectations.
You have to go from being a middling, mediocre playing team to essentially being an Eastern Conference contender overnight.
Yeah. And look, and I'm going to tell you something that's understated. You know, we're talking about, potential coaching hires, but for some reason, man, nobody wants to talk about the job Mitch Kupchak has this summer. Like, That guy has the responsibility to improve this roster and maybe to finally get us a damn center. You know what I mean? Like Kupchak has a hard job this summer. He has Gordon Hayward's situation. You know what I mean? He has the Miles Bridges situation hanging over his head. Maybe not this season, but he still has to figure out what how the LaMelo situation long term. So he's got to do that. The Hornets have to have a lot of foresight beginning this offseason. And Mitch Kupchak, he's the head of it. So he's got a lot to look at, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the roster makeup is going to be a bigger factor than the coaching change.
Right, I agree.
I mean, it is. I mean, we haven't had a good center since Dwight Howard left, and that's saying a lot considering we got like the old version of Dwight Howard, who wasn't terrible when he was here by no means, but we just haven't had a good center, and that's been one of the Hornets' biggest deficiencies on the floor on both ends, offensively and defensively. And if we don't shore that up, we're going to essentially be the same team that we were the last season. So I fully expect Mitch to make he's going to make an unpopular move because whenever a team has to take that next step, they always make an unpopular move.
Because you have to give up something to get something. That's the way the NBA works.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. We're going to have to, and it won't be, I mean, okay, we'll probably find a way to get off of Gordon Hayward's contract. But somebody that the fans like is gonna have to be sacrificed.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not gonna be like PJ Washington. It's gonna be like the shiny new toy everyone wants to see, James Bouknight. It's gonna be someone like Kai Jones. It might be someone like Miles Bridges,
or maybe Terry Rozier. That's my
right. A lot of Hornets fans I don't think would be too upset about Terry Rozier because he's a polarizing figure. With the Hornets fans, mainly because he replaced Kemba Walker.
Right.
And a lot of people, he's not doing what he was brought here to do. He was here to be the next point guard, and instead he's a catch and shoot 2 guard, which he's doing very well. I mean, 18 points a game. I mean, what else? I mean, what more could you ask from the guy? But
I think you got to be specific about Rozier. He's turned into an undersized catch and shoot 2 guard who leaves a lot to be desired on defense.
And I think Hornets fans wouldn't be all that upset if. Also, I don't think Terry would be that upset. There's a lot of teams that would kill for Terry Rozier in their backcourt. The version of Terry Rozier that we got, actually. But I think the roster makeup has to be addressed. Big decisions I'm going to make about Montrezl Harrell, Isaiah Thomas, and you've got the next coach. You really can't make a move until you got the next guy because you have to sit with him and say, okay, what's your roadmap? What's your vision? What you going to do with Bouknight and Kai Jones?
Right. That which is a very, very hot topic amongst Hornets fans. And look, and I said this before. What do you do with Cody Martin? We haven't talked about that yet. You know what I mean? Because to me, it doesn't make sense to keep Cody Martin and then expect Bouknight to get playing time. I don't. That just doesn't work. It doesn't work. Right, so you got to make a decision there.
I would be okay with parting ways with Terry. I'd hate to see him go, but that's business. Miles, I would not be happy with any transaction.
So let me cut you off. Here's a hot question that's about to be a thing. Is Miles Bridges a max player? Do you give him max money?
So here's the issue. Miles Bridges has improved every season he's been in the league.
Fact.
And not like he took a pretty massive jump this last season, but anyone that saw him play the end of the previous season when Gordon Hayward went down, it was clear that he had overcome some kind of hurdle, some kind of obstacle. Right. He put in work in the offseason. He got better at the thing that people said was the biggest knock on him was that he couldn't create his own shot. Well, he can do that now. The only knock on him now is that his three-point shooting took a decline, but I think that's because teams aren't just letting him hang around the three-point line like they were previously.
Right.
If you let a player go that is constantly improving, boy, does it look bad on you if that player ends up being an all-star or better.
And especially if you're the Charlotte. No. Let me take that back. Especially if you're Michael Jordan and the Charlotte Hornets. Do you not understand? People cannot wait for that to happen.
Is Miles a max player? Objectively, no, he's not. But here's the problem: the Charlotte Hornets, we don't have that kind of. We don't have the equity to be objective about anything. Max contracts exist mainly for one reason. It's so that teams like the Hornets can keep their guys. Can keep star talent that they are developing, so they don't run away in free agency. The fact remains that nobody can pay pay Miles Bridges as much as the Charlotte Hornets can. That's what max contracts are supposed to be for. So, in that regard, yeah, he's worth whatever it takes to keep him. That's a guy that you developed. Miles Bridges is now a 25-5 guy now. Do you want to send him off to somewhere? I mean, what do we get in return? So let's say we don't re-sign Miles, or another team makes an offer, we let him go, or we trade him. Now what?
Now what?
We've lost a 25-5 guy. What do we replace that with?
Right.
So it's weird. It's like, man, Miles bet on himself, and he's about to win. He's about
to either way. He's gonna win either way. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a win-win for Miles, and it's a gamble for the Charlotte Hornets. You max him out, and he ends up not taking the next step. Like, there was a discussion in the Hornets Facebook group about whether or not it was comparing Miles Bridges and Jaylen Brown. And Jaylen Brown is right now, as we are talking, Jaylen Brown is a better player than Miles Bridges. But the gap is not that big. And if you look at their first 3 seasons, almost identical.
They're almost identical.
Advanced metrics, the improvements they took. So Jaylen Brown made that next step. So a lot of people may think, well, Miles Bridges isn't going to make that next step that Jaylen Brown did. We don't know that. I mean,
we don't know that.
And if he does, boy, do we look bad if we don't somehow keep him. Our friend Danny Thompson doesn't think that he'll get offered near max by other teams, though, and that's an important thing. He thinks that he's going to be around 120 mil player, which I agree.
I agree with that.
I think Miles is worth that, and if somebody makes if somebody makes that kind of offer, the Hornets will match. I don't think the Hornets should offer him max out the gate, hoping that he stays. I think that would be
terrible business, honestly.
Yeah, not a good idea to do that. Hey, he wanted to test the market. Let's see what the market looks like, and then
that's what I'm afraid. See, that's what I'm afraid of, Kaza. Let's talk about that. Testing the market, because our brother Rodney, he has this belief where you essentially go let Miles find his max. That's what Rodney's belief is. I'm gonna give you a team that scares me when it comes to that. The Detroit Pistons. The Detroit Pistons have an ass load of cap room, and they are ready to give somebody like Miles Bridges the money he asked for. So I'm not really with letting Miles Bridges go find his max. Now I'm not suggesting that we overpay him, like you said. I'm of the mindset where you go in and you negotiate what you think is a fair deal and you get it done. But I'm not of the mindset of you letting him just hit free agency and say, "Hey man, go find your money." Nah, can't do it.
No, yeah. You play the restricted free agency game, and then you see what shakes out. Like you said, a team like Detroit, they're gonna bet on Miles Bridges' potential. What does Detroit have to lose by playing?
They don't have anything to lose.
Max, near max for Miles Bridges. Nothing. They're already terrible. If Miles doesn't work out, then If he does work out, well, now the Pistons got a hometown guy, and they're going to be better for it. This is an interesting situation. Mitch Kupchak is a savvy veteran, though.
Experienced vet GM. Yep.
I think he'll find a way to keep Miles around. I don't think LaMelo Ball wants Miles Bridges to go anywhere. We know what kind of rapport they have together. That's going to be very important. And, if Miles leaves, then what is the core of our team? I think he said right now, what's the core of the Hornets? Well, you got LaMelo Ball, you got Miles Bridges, and the third guy, and maybe Terry Rozier, I guess, but he may not be around. But at least, hey, you got 2 big pieces. You just need to add a good third. If you lose Miles, now what's your core? You don't have a core. You got LaMelo Ball and a bunch of guys.
Right.
You got the Dallas Mavericks.
Right. And look, I love me some LaMelo, but he ain't Luka.
He's not Luka yet. He's not Luka yet.
Yeah. So, man,
y'all killing me, Hornets.
Hey, but look, we have one thing to celebrate. Well, we're not the experts. We're not the experts. Before we talk about this, them damn Canes, man.
Okay,
I actually watched that entire game. I just want to let you know, bro.
So before we lose like all of our viewers, because we're going to talk about hockey just a little bit.
Try to stay on with us a little bit, y'all. Right.
I feel like I do this every year. I say, hey guys, start watching the Canes. Now I know if you're Hornets fans, it's tough because a lot of times.
Yeah, they come on at the same time. Yeah.
And me, actually, I watch the Hornets games, and then I kind of like keep up with the Canes games on my phone. And if the Hornets aren't playing, then I might watch the Canes game. But playoff hockey is unlike anything you've ever seen if you've never watched it. Even if you don't understand the rules, just watch a playoff game, and you're going to be like, first of all, the violence is just that.
You can't beat it.
It's not like it used to be, but it's still better than like the NFL, where the NFL, like you tap someone on the shoulder, and that's 15 yards. If you want to see the biggest hit like ever, go back and watch highlights from Game 3, the Hurricanes win over the Boston Bruins, where Lindholm on the Bruins was laid out on a legal hit that almost knocked him out of the series. He didn't come back till Game 7. Just really good hockey. And the Canes they're perennially good. I mean, they're a playoff team every season, which is something that we don't have here in Charlotte, a team that makes the playoff every season. And the Canes are one of the favorites to win the cup this season, although they had to go 7 games with a Bruins squad that a lot of people didn't think was as good. The Bruins were essentially a wild card team. But styles make fights. The Bruins are a tough matchup. Plus, there was a psychological thing, I think. The Bruins had knocked the Canes out of the playoffs.
Yeah.
2 of the past 4 seasons. And I think that was kind of looming large with the Hurricanes. They beat the Bruins up, beat them at their own game. Great series. Very exciting hockey. Trust me, under construction fans, just watch one Hurricanes game. Just do it.
So look, let me give you the casual fan perspective, man. So like I said, I actually made it a point to watch that entire game, man, and I was not disappointed, dude. Like the action was just intense the entire time, man. The third quarter when Boston scored the goal, and the score at that point is what, 3-2 at that point?
Yeah, with 20 seconds left.
And I'm like, oh my God, if the Canes blow this.
So for those who didn't see Game 7, the Hurricanes were cruising. They were up 3-1.
Yep.
And then this is just the randomness of hockey that happens sometimes. I don't remember who it was. One of the Hurricanes players broke his stick. So if you are on the ice without a stick, you are a huge liability. You
know, right.
Play the puck. So he's trying to get off ice. Meanwhile, the Bruins had emptied their net. They pulled their goaltender, so they have an extra player on the floor. During that switch in which the player is going back to get another stick, essentially it's 6-on-4 hockey.
It's 6-on-4, right.
So what happens is the Bruins score a goal and make it 3-2 with 20 seconds left.
It wasn't a power play, but essentially it was a power play. Right.
So now you're like, okay, we're still up 1 goal. What's the chances they're going to score a goal in 20 seconds? Well,
they can't get them close.
Yeah, so now it's 6-on-5, and boy, that last 20 seconds of hockey was insanity.
It was insane, man.
I mean, dudes flying all over the place. I think Boston got 3 shots on goal just in that 20 seconds because, then the game goes in overtime and it's sudden death after that. But the Canes held on. They won. Boston fans were very upset, very salty. They had a lot of very ignorant things to say about North Carolina hockey fans. They said that PNC Arena pumped sound into the arena during games. No, that's not. PNC is
let's talk about
it. In the NHL, one of the hardest places to play. They were so salty. I love it.
Come, that is so irresponsible and egregious, man. Like, how are you gonna accuse? Come on, you're that salty, really, Boston? Really? Like, you can't lose to us North Carolinians in anything. Seriously, y'all.
So
That's
what's funny is, so the Bruins and the Hurricanes actually have a bit of a rivalry, playoffs rivalry. They played in the last 12, 13 years. They've played each other 4 times in the playoffs, and right now they're 2-2. But the last time we beat them was in 2009. We beat them in the playoffs on the same day, actually. The same day, some 13 years apart. So I, the fact there's a little bit of a rivalry there with Boston, yeah, I get it. Plus, but recently they'd had the Hurricanes number, and Boston sports fans feel like they are entitled to stuff,
to everything.
Right. I think they felt like they were entitled to win this series, even though the Hurricanes were just the better team. They were just better.
Yeah.
Regular season, during the playoffs, and I think they ended up outscoring, if we count regular season and this series, something like 36 to 8.
Jesus.
Yeah, well, I'm talking at home, in Raleigh, that's an absurd stat. So yes, the Canes used to be Whalers, Hartford versus Boston. That's another important thing to know. So I became a Canes fan. I was actually living in Minnesota when they moved from Hartford to Raleigh. For those of you that even have ever stepped foot in Minnesota, like, hockey is
a big deal.
Like down here, it's like Friday night high school football. Not Minnesota, because it's snow on the ground. It's Friday night high school hockey. It's like, y'all going to a hockey game? Oh, my hockey game? Yeah, high school hockey game. And it's like 10,000 people cheering for a high school team. So I was like, all right, I guess I got to learn hockey now. And
so listen, so for those of y'all who know me personally, y'all know I was actually born in Hartford, Connecticut. And let me tell you, in 2022, they are still salty about us getting, not us, but Carolina getting the Hurricanes. You better not mention Hurricanes in Hartford, Connecticut till this day. It's still a very sore spot. And look, none of y'all have any reason to go to Hartford, Connecticut. Trust me, you don't. It's a city you don't want to go to. It's terrible, but you have to understand that is literally all they had. You know what I mean? So when you take that from them, it's a pretty sensitive subject around those parts.
Then they won a championship like 10 years later.
Right. That part, right. Say, man, we got to, I guess we kind of getting short on time, man. Got any closing remarks or shout outs, anything, man?
I don't really have any big. Actually, first of all, condolences to those killed in yet another mass shooting that happened in Buffalo, New York, the other day. I actually have family in Buffalo. That is it's a very interesting social dynamic up in Buffalo, particularly from a race standpoint. It's the urban areas are mostly people of color, and then there are a lot of rural areas, places like Holland and Arcade right outside of Buffalo, that are in which there are just not a lot of people of color. So whenever those two sides kind of clash, it becomes very interesting. Now, this shooting wasn't specifically that, but it's going to raise a lot of discussion about racial demographics in Buffalo, which is sad because that shouldn't be the conversation.
Right.
But it will be. So my condolences out to those people. It's like, man, another mass shooting in this country is just so. I'm so tired of
it. And honestly, man, I hate to sound so selfish, man, but I was like, kind of yesterday, man. I didn't want to dwell on it because I just kind of wanted to, go about my day and not be so invested in this depressing news, man. But you can't run away from it. You know what I mean? It's just an unfortunate part of American. Whatever, I'm really just getting sick and tired of seeing it on the news, man. But in better news and better spirits or whatever, man. Kaiser, I gotta, you getting a shout at today, buddy.
Oh boy.
You missed a great time last night.
The big battle.
Let me tell y'all something, man. Any hip hop fans that are following this thing today, Mike Thompson, glad I saw you out there last night, man. You can chime in if you're still with us, dude. So, Just Blaze versus Jake One. This was a DJ battle, and it was one for the ages. It was such a big win for Charlotte, for QC hip hop. The highlight of the event for me personally, I got to see one of my favorite hip hop acts of all time perform live, Large Professor. It was a surprise he was not on the bill, but he actually came on stage and performed. I'd scream like a girl. It was amazing. So many people that I have not seen on the QC hip hop scene in so long. It was like a big old family reunion, minus Kaiser, which should have been out there, man. But hey, man, I know dope responsibilities and all that. I get it, bro. But it was an amazing time, man. So shout out to QC hip hop. Shout out to Gene Brown, who put this whole thing together, man. Shout out to Lonnie Blakeney. An amazing time, man. One of the best times I've had in Charlotte in a long time, man. So just a good thing to.
I seriously considered coming out and making a cameo. As far as hip hop goes, I am retired. Okay, I still do behind the scenes stuff. I do some production and engineering for some people that will remain nameless. But I just felt like being a hermit.
And you were asked about last night.
People hit me up all night like, "Dog, you coming out to this thing?" And I was like, "Man, I just want to go back to sleep and watch Ozark." So, also, last thing before we go, Charlotte FC fans, stop throwing beer. Stop it. There's the fact that there is like a debate about this is ridiculous. Let's not be those fans, okay? I understand this is a new thing for Charlotte, and we kind of want to build our own traditions and whatnot. But like throwing beer, like. I just say, don't throw beer. If I come to Charlotte FC game, don't throw beer on me.
Don't throw beer on me. Don't throw beer on me. That's your tradition will end that day. Don't throw it on me. Hey man, before we go, what's your prediction on the Hurricanes for the next round, man? What you thinking?
Oh boy. I felt like they are true cup favorites. It was concerning, though. I'll say this: it was concerning that they did not win a road game this past series.
Right. It's also concerning that they won 7 with Boston, who a lot of people predicted that they would sweep.
That's not as concerning to me, considering that we essentially put a goaltender in who was had as much a goaltending experience as me. By the way, your first ever starts in a playoff game, do well, and he did. He played. Nancy Ranta played an incredible series. And that was a really tough, physical, almost dirty series. A lot of big hits, injuries, things like that. I don't expect that to be the next round. I like Ethan's. I like Ethan's prediction. I'm gonna say Canes in 6.
Right.
I'm gonna ride this all the way to the to the Stanley Cup Finals. I mean, might as well, right?
All right, look, I got a not so bold prediction. I don't think it's gonna, and this is just a general prediction. That nothing to do with hockey. I predict that Mike D'Antoni will be hired by the Hornets by the next time we record. By next week, I believe D'Antoni will be hired.
Yeah, I completely agree. He's gonna be the new coach, and I'm just gonna go in the Charlotte Hornets group. I'm not gonna say anything.
Not yet. Not yet.
I'm gonna be like the Watcher in the Marvel universe, just watching the chaos that is gonna ensue. Chaos. Oh, it's gonna be great. Gonna be great.
Hey, before we go, man, real quick shout out to everybody in the chat room once again, man. Travis, I see you, man. Mike, I see you. Ethan, I see you. Schiff, we see you, man. Shout out to y'all in the chat room, man. Thank y'all for joining us on this kind of random Sunday that we got to do together, man. But it's all good, man. We're glad to see y'all here always, man. So
yeah, we'll probably be back in the studio next week. We're gonna
try and get Mike D'Antoni getting hired by the Hornets.
We're gonna try and get it. If that's the case, you know who we got to bring in.
We gotta bring our main man Jerry V on the show.
Jerry V gotta come on. I would love to hear what he has to say about that if we hire Mike D'Antoni. So see y'all soon. Thanks again for being fans. We love y'all. Take care of each other.
Peace out, y'all.